Welcome to Fossils by Firelight, a series of conversations with South Africa's geological legends, where they unearth their discoveries, learnings, memories, interesting stories, and maybe a few tall tales to chronicle our history and inspire the next generation of geological heroes. Hello and welcome to another episode of Fossils by Firelight. Today we're coming to you from Hermanus, the place where South African geologists seem to migrate, like whales of a scientific sort, swapping their corporate hard hats for ocean views, good wine, and the art of living their best geological afterlife. If the geological timescale had a holiday home, it would definitely be here. So we've got a fantastic lineup of guests, so let's dive right in. Our first guest is David Mourant. David, as a boy growing up in England, what first sparked your interest in geology? Was it a particular person, a place, or maybe a single moment when you looked at a rock and thought, well, this is by far more interesting than whatever the other kids are doing?
It's not far off that. The first thing that really got me interested, I was 8 years old and I found a fossil ammonite in the Cretaceous in the chalk. And I didn't know what it was. I had no idea what it was. But there was an old guy in our village who'd been a teacher. He'd been a librarian. And I showed it to him and he said, that is a fossil ammonite. And that was it. From then on, I've only been interested in geology, nothing else. Nothing else. I was 8, so it's 68 years ago.
Okay, so next up we have Mark Dormer. Mike, when I Googled your name, I found an American television producer, a Lord Mayor of London, but 1541. So I thought that was probably not you. And a New Zealand cricketer. So I've taken an educated guess that you're none of those, unless you've been hiding a very impressive double life. So, if you were able to write your own Google entry, how would you finish this sentence? Mark Dormer is?
Well, it's all to do with sheep, you see, because I'm English speaking and I was born in Zambia and I came to South Africa under dubious circumstances. And the first person that I ran into and gave my surname, he said to me in Afrikaans, but that's a type of sheep. Are you a sheep? And ever since then, I've been associated with sheep. So the Dorper Merino Cross is a Dormer sheep in South Africa, a recognized breed, has a black head unlike me, but it's also interested in things that are very close to the ground. He's interested in food, I'm interested in rocks.
Our next guest is John Blaine. Your interest lies strongly in the local geology of this area. Are there any historical mining or exploration stories tied to the Overberg that most geologists may not know about? The kind of stories that should be told around campfires or whispered in museum corners.
Well, Noleen, that's interesting because one of the things I like about the Overberg is there are no mineral deposits. And after a long career working in hard rock. But my geology story started back in high school doing geography and geomorphology. And then when I finished matric, my dad said, what do you want to do? I said, I had no idea. So he sent me to an aptitude test where the man in the Department of Labor said, your maths is terrible. You'll never be an engineer. My dad was an engineer. Do geology. So I then went in the army and I bought a book called Teach Yourself Geology. And for 9 months I read that back to front. And I gave a talk to the candidate officers one day and I came out and I went to Wits. And that's how I started. Then to UCT and into places up yonder in flat country and hard rock. And in the Cape here, there's no flat country, just beautiful three-dimensional geology.
So you went to Wits, you went to
Sheffield in England,
UK, and
I went to the University of Life, which was much more interesting than this business.
yeah, so we love it, right? So we can read a book and learn about geology. We can go to the University of Life and learn all about geology.
But I didn't stay at Wits. The family moved to Cape Town because my dad was transferred. So I then went to UCT and started from scratch. And took it a while later that. Yeah.
Let's go back to your early careers. Anybody throw this into the pot. Can you share an early career mistake that became a valuable lesson?
I don't suppose you mean meeting my wife. But the thing I probably regret most about the first 2 or 3 years was a definite lack of interaction with other geologists. I was sitting out there in a bush in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and that was it. It was me, my gang of workers. I had no interaction with other geologists, no learning apart from how to walk through the bush and not stumble over stupid things. So that was not a very good part of my first 3 years.
Yeah.
I made an interesting mistake when I was with De Beers on the West Coast. They said to me, no, come along, we need candidate geologists, and you must come and be one because you look as if you're interested in this stuff. So I went down there, and there was an excavator, one of these CAC machines, excavating the bedrock and cleaning up in between, and there were guys with brushes brushing and digging diamonds out of little cavities in amongst the marine terraces. And I said to these guys, you want me to do what? You want me to study the rocks or get involved with the machines that actually take the diamonds out? And I said, you know where I'm going? I'm going where the money is. And that was with the machines. And that was a career no-no. That was wrong for me. It was the wrong choice to make. I should have gone into geology because I didn't realize then where my interest really lay. And that was a pity because after that, I followed a mechanical engineering line instead of the actually geology. And I was always associated with geologists because of the mine engineering. And I never actually went back and corrected that mistake, which maybe I should have. But then who knows? I'm happy where I am at the moment.
No, I suppose I could quite easily have been involved in the first oil discoveries in South Africa because as a back job at the end of failing my third year, I had a job with Harry Vossel and Associates in the Sundays River Valley, mapping and logging the Cretaceous sections. And the worst experiences there was driving through prickly pear fields with an open Land Rover window and having to pick the spikes out of the back of my associate geologists. But that was short-lived, about 6 weeks, and another week later on. But then after that, I just happened to see a sign on the notice board at UCT, both I was UCT, Falcon Ridge, geologists wanted for Southwest Africa. So arranged to meet the venerable Hein Fuchter and meet him at the hotel there in Sea Point, whatever famous old one is. And I went there and arrived and duly dressed up, and he came meet me in the lobby, and we had our chat. And I saw one of my pals sitting in the back having dinner with him. Oh, but it was too bad. Anyway, I got the call. I was on a plane to Windhoek about a week later, and that's where my career started in Northern Southwest Africa, in West Falconbridge, 34 years.
That was the mistake. Because you asked him the mistake, and he gave you everything that was positive. The mistake came right at the end. That was on the discovery oil, John.
That was interesting because the work that we were doing there identified the location of the very first ore hole drilled in the Sundays River Valley at Colchester, right, in which they did detect traces of oil gas, whatever. Yes, and that was followed up and drilled by somebody who followed me, Russell Schoen, who was at Nelson Mandela Nelson Mandela University. So anyway, that's part of my history, and it's fun. It's fun.
And so that obviously also identifies a moment or a decision that changed your career or guided your career.
Oh, yes. I got totally fed up with living for 3 years in a tent in Zimbabwe. At the age of 21, you want a little bit, as I said earlier on, interaction with other people. Not only geologists, but just a social life. I had no social life. And after 3 years, I resigned and spent a couple of years going around the world and having many, many interactions with social. But then I realized I haven't got a future. I hadn't got a career. So I came out to South Africa and had a few interviews and got a job with Goldfields as And so my speciality at university had been mining and economic geology. So they put me straight into a gold mine. Okay, the interactions weren't always what I wanted or what I would have liked. However, there was always people around. Yeah. There were geologists around. I learnt an incredible amount. And a lot of the people are still, Richard Fillion was one of the people with whom I interacted. And you had to go underground every day. But boy, did I learn a lot not from only geology, but people. That made a huge difference. I didn't think it wasn't exactly why I did it, but that was the big thing in my life. Probably the biggest step up I've had was coming to meet people, interact with people, geology, mining, etc., etc. Enjoyed it. Most of it, not entirely, obviously, but hell's teeth, it was great.
Yeah, it's interesting how you pick up, there are certain mentors. You don't realize at the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
People are there. Like when I arrived in Windhoek, and there was John Lee, big John Lee, and his brother Malcolm was there in Stanford. And the first experience was in the car, touring off, have lunch, back to the office. He goes and has a nap.
Yeah.
And the next morning we were off to Commonwealth. He left me, we're sort of halfway there. He says, "Have you got anything to eat?" So he stopped by where it was the truth. I mean, load up with some stuff. And he just let me in the camp there, showed me what the project was, and off you go. Yeah, been with one or two guys, and for 6 months I probably didn't see anybody other than the Bombo. And he did a great job boiling water. And it was quite interesting. And then we had a couple of field assistants arrive, and they helped out. And I guess you got a general trend of what you have to do with basic map, soil sample, guess your way around the rocks. But none of it was in perspective with anyone. It was like, there's rocks, describe the rocks. There's copper minerals, describe the mineral. Well, I had a little problem with red-green, so malachite suckle on a brown background. That was interesting, but that went on for a year. That was lovely.
How about you, Mike? Did you ever want to want to be a geologist doing his job?
Because at the age of 21, when you were sort of socially inactive and ruining the day that you became a geologist, I was in the single quarters in Kleinsee and at CDM at Whoopflay and these places, and we had a magnificent social life. We won't go into delve into those details, but I was very, very...
So your wife's not here? You can...
No, and I'm not married, actually, so probably as a result of those younger years of debauchery. But at the end of the day, you looked at a geologist, and there was this windswept character that used to come in there with a 4x4, somewhere from the dunes, 45 kilometers away from anything that was recognized as civilization. And he would come in there and look around furtively, and then he'd be gone again. And the engineering chaps, we'd be having a beer and playing a little bit of snooker or doing whatever. And we'd look at these guys and say, thank God I didn't go that route. Our social life was great. But interacting with people, Dave, I never had that problem either. Can you imagine coming as a pure English person, having studied Latin and French at school at Oxford?
I was there.
A-level, and you come into South Africa in 1975, and the guys look at you and they say, "What are we going to do with this guy? We're going to put him out of the way." So they sent him to Namaqualand. And there I learned to react with people. Can you imagine going to these Afrikaans people, speaking people, not English, not at all. No, not a word.
Yeah.
Having a name like a sheep. And then trying to make your way in Afrikaans without any understanding whatsoever. They had a ball. They loved me. They couldn't get enough of me. Yeah. And they used to rip me every single day. But that was interacting with people. And finding people in South Africa, and that was very, very valuable to me as a character builder for later on. So not for a moment when I went to Windswept and I thought, no, I'm not a geologist. Thanks very much. I'll be a mechanic or something else.
Yeah, straight for the girls, right?
Thanks. Well, I didn't say we wanted to go there, but yeah.
It's like me trying to, living in Carltonville, total Afrikaans society. So I went to Afrikaans lessons, and after I'd been, it was a weekly lesson, so I've been a month or so, and I was told my accent wasn't very good, but then we went to I was going down one of the mine shafts with a load of Afrikaans-speaking miners, and I started to, right, I'll speak Afrikaans to them. They all burst out laughing and said, "Hierdie Engelsman dink ek kan Afrikaans praat." And that was it. I never spoke another word of Afrikaans to them.
Yeah, I mean, like, my first, after doing Afrikaans lower in matric and stuff in Northern Southwest Africa, and you got to go and talk to the farmer. Or one thing I learned I didn't like was rooibos stew with milk in it. But I got through the Afrikaans, and he was quite nice and very, very understanding. In later years in Portuguese, was Roti Rotenbach, the prospector, a wonderful guy, sort of introduced us to, I think, Falkenberg's first platinum project there, right, at just south of Portuguese, and Ross Valley it was, yeah. But he was great, and he was a science teacher, and he always walked around with pebbles in his pocket. And then they'd come for dinner, and the sofa would have pebbles and stompies and cracks. Great people, yeah. They are, I mean, the people that you meet along the way, they're just the characters at various places. I think you wish you could sort of remember them all. If you had cell phones, you would.
So my husband's from Ireland, and we were working up in Stella, North West Province, and he was napping, went to this farmhouse, knocked on the door, and in his best Afrikaans said, "Kan ek asseblief met die boere praat?" And the wife said to him, "My man is do it." Gavin thought she said, "My man is 8." So he was about to say, "Well, where's he going to be back?" And his field assistant gently nudged him out the way and took over the conversation.
Yeah, besides the language things, though, very often it was similar to geology. The route that I took was designing machines that were getting to strange-looking places where the geologists wanted machines to be, and that sort of thing. And there was always this camaraderie between the two sort of scientific streams. And it was great fun for me, especially when I was in Namaqualand and these places, where you would get one of the local geologists who'd been there for forever. And on a Saturday afternoon, there wasn't much to do in Springbok. And he would say, "Come along and let's go down to the Orange River and let's go walk in the Riptersbelt." And I had this amazing set of friends that would take me down there and show me rocks. And the love for geology, I think, started in Namaqualand back in 76 or 78, somewhere around there. And that's where I saw how passionate geologists are actually about their subject material.
Especially in the Richtersveld.
Yeah, it's an amazing training ground. It's an amazing place to be. But you don't build an affinity for a yellow machine like you do for the history of rocks, what they are, and what they represent and where they come from. And the whole story expands.
What's happened to those rocks?
Yep.
That's the important thing about geology to me. And I use it as a title for every one of my talks. Every rock has a story.
Correct.
And that is so true. And I always try when I'm taking people, in Barberton when we're taking them there, or even here around there, trying to tell them what the story of that rock is.
Yeah.
And that's really one of my passions, is getting that across to people.
It's amazing though that you build up this. You start to build up the sort of sideline knowledge around about things that you haven't specialized in, and then you move from marine terraces, diamonds, to, let's say, to Rembrandt or to Transhex, and you go Paleo Orange River sort of terraces, and you go and have a look at that. And I was instrumental in opening up Barker. And that was a beautiful project for me. I moved from there, I went to Broodrift, because Broodrift was part of Opta. You remember the old Opta workings further up the river, towards Fieldster. And that was Transhex's operation.
Yeah.
And then every Friday you'd see the aeroplane come in and you see the chief of security run out with a little suitcase and he'd be off. And he was well known, old Cordieri. We often used to wonder where exactly are those diamonds bound for. But anyway, those were other stories that were involved. But you then got invited to other things. And I worked on CATSI for a while because the guys knew that I could design, equipment to do strange stuff. And the workings at CATSI on the damn war attracted me to them. And they invited me to come and have a look at changing track units and the sort of thing. And the geology was right alongside the engineering, the mechanical engineering sort of aspect of it. So wherever I've gone, I've had this sort of symbiosis of geology and geologists. And it's always been this sort of dual interest. Oh, about helicopters, and one of your very funny stories is about a helicopter in the middle of the Kalahari Sands with fuel drums. But we won't go there. But when I was working with Gulf Oil, and I was doing the power generation and the pumping side of things, and designing engines to drive these pumps, and we would be taken out by helicopters to the production platforms, and the guys used to get the helicopter up on its nose and quickly cut the runway with the rotors and then carry off on. And the first couple of times they did that, I mean, I was white and staring at the front of this chopper. But yeah, it's all these funny stories that then sort of start to come out of this career path that you chose almost by mistake.
There was people that affect you along the way. I mean, the other two people who, for me, were Tom Mackey. You probably don't remember Tom. He was definitely in the 70s and early 80s. He took over at Falconbridge as chief geologist after Hein Fuchter retired. And then Chris Jennings, who were great. Well, he started Falconbridge on the diamonds for, and that was a great connection for me and Botswana, particularly. And led to a long association with Botswana. And not only in the diamonds, but in gold and base metals and latterly, and Salivi Pekwi, which was Falconbridge refined their mat from Salivi Pekwi, and so we had a very close connection with them.
Dave, when you were very young,
it's all good, all these different people who come and direct you.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Dave. He, at 8 years of age, was your dad involved with your geological trail?
No, unfortunately, my father was killed when I was much younger. He was so he was not involved. It was myself and this guy, the old chap who I met, who identified the ammonite. He also introduced me to the book Old Forelegs about the seal accounts.
Yeah?
I mean, and he explained to me about it, and I'm sort of 8, 9, 10, that sort of age. And I kept in contact with him my entire life, until he died. And he left me £200 in his will. I bought my first car. I was at university, and I bought my first car with that money. That's the kind of thing. He was an old guy, but he said, I will never forget it. To my friend David Mourant, £200. That was in his will. What more can you ask? This guy started
by mentors.
Yeah,
that's exactly that.
Exactly that. Yeah, I went to him with everything, and when I was at school, and he was fine. But university, no, because I'd already decided well before that to do geology.
Yeah,
which obviously went behind him. But just as a person, as a spread of knowledge. And that's what intrigued me. I could ask him any question, and I'd be very, very seldom would he ever not know anything about. And that's, to my mind, I would like to be, apart from engineering, I would like to know, to be able to know a bit about, to tell somebody, my grandchildren, my children, etc., about as wide a knowledge as possible, with the exception of yellow thing, of course.
I will forgive you. For that stuff. That's fine.
But that has been a guiding thing through my entire life. With my family, my 2 children, my grandchildren now. A spread of knowledge. Whatever they want to ask, I will try and answer. Not only geology, but everything around it.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things for me to be born on the copper belt,
right,
I was actually to look at bornite for the first time and say, that's a very pretty looking rock. And I must have been all of about 4 or 5. Yeah. My dad was involved in that sort of thing. He was serious mine captain at Duansha, and had a geological background, once again, not an educated person. But he used to show me all these amazing colors and different things. And as a kid, you grew up like that. You started, that interest started straight away there. Of course, I wanted to do marine biology and I wanted to do aquaculture seriously when I was going through my school career up in mostly in Zimbabwe at secondary level. But and circumstances changed. But I followed him from the copper belt through to asbestos mining, through to diamonds, through to uranium, on all these weird and wonderful mines that he got involved in. And you would see the different rocks. And this must trigger something in your subconscious about that drives an interest much later. And this is much later in my life now, that I have this tremendous interest now in geology. And I have the time and the space to indulge it much more than I did when I was actually working.
I remember taking you on the walk from here in Hermanus, from the old harbour to the new harbour to the old harbour.
Yes.
And I thought you were a geologist. You were asking me so many good questions, really interested. There was no question. You were there. It's totally focused on it. I really enjoy that.
Yeah, and I think it's just the opportunity that you get given to talk to interesting people that are interested in the field that you're interested in, and that can share so much knowledge that you begin to get this drive to pass it on and to have a look at youngsters. How do they grow up? I mean, geology is not my field and of endeavor, but certainly it is the field that I feel, and I feel really closely with John Bristow about it, is that we should drive it in amongst the youngsters now.
Yes.
To get them to geological expertise in one way and another.
Definitely.
Because it's got that deep-seated interest for me. And
I think an important thing is it's all around you. That's what I always tell people is, why do you do? I said, but it's all around you. It doesn't have to be a particular project or anything. You just look at the countryside and it creates magic.
It's driving up to Johannesburg, telling your wife about all the geology on the way. Anne's got Geology 101 taped.
The problem is, Dave, I will say da, and then say, oh, hang on a second, go back to that book, it's in the boot, and get it out, and just see if I'm right about it. She hates me.
I think you all have that book.
Geological Journeys, Nick Norman, Bruce Rivage.
One of those,
So which skills do you think are underrated but essential in the field? We've spoken about communication and people skills.
Well, to me, I think I grew up in the Boy Scout movement in Johannesburg. And I think that was an essential skill to have when I got dumped in a small camp between Uchu and Comino. How to sort out, it wasn't so much interacting with the few labourers there, but being able to, the fact that I could survive while he was. Yeah, for me, I grew up, I was in the Boy Scouts in Johannesburg growing up and really enjoyed that and learning how to camp and how to build a camp and how to cook for yourself in the bush and so on. So being dumped in northern Southwest Africa, with minimal notice, nobody told me I was going there. I just landed in Windhoek, got picked up and driven up there and left behind after about a 4-day introduction. In fact, the first thing that John Lee tested me on was, we were driving along this road, and we get out the farm gates, and he gives me an aerial photograph. He says, "Where are you?" And I thought, that's a hell of a question. Once there's a road, we're on a road, okay. And he pointed out that we're at a fence, and that was a fence, and that's where we were at the fence. And that actually instilled in me the love of aerial photography. I love aerial photography and interpreting aerial photographs. But to have that essential skill of being able to look after yourself in the bush, which in latter years, with younger geologists in Botswana, good training, Takis, UCT, wherever, they not have a clue how to set up a camp. Not a clue. With all the facilities in the world available, lots of money to buy whatever they wanted, did not have a clue. Between myself and Rod Frick, who was with Impact Minerals, I was working in that space, and he was an old school Rhodesian and Limpopo guy, and also Boy Scouts of the day. You know, we thought a hair out of you guys. We eventually sat down and drew up a plan to us. That's how you build a camp, you know, and then you don't put the toilet next to the kitchen and all sort of stuff. It was quite horrendous. How they survived, I have no idea, but I hope they learned something.
Yeah, it is amazing. I mean, you know, the nicest camps you have are those with camp managers.
Yeah.
Where the geologist doesn't have to worry about all the logistics of that. But as a geologist, you should know.
You should. I mean, Parkenbridge geologists setting up in the Central Kalahari on that diamond program, they built some real camps there. I mean, Bruce Cumming and Roger Billington particularly, they built some camps. You would not. But yeah, money was not much of an object. So, and when you had, you know, visitors from Canada and from Superior Oil in the United States, you know, you want to, give them a decent meal and a warm bed and so on. So they didn't, for them, they didn't bat an eyelid. It was sort of like in the middle of nowhere. Here's a prefab house and there's, you know, hot and cold running water and food. Quite extraordinary. But yeah,
No,
logistics is a big thing. I think understanding logistics in a remote camp is really important.
I came out from university in England and never having spent a night in a tent other than on our front lawn. And I didn't know what to do. Fortunately, the chief geologist at my first camp was Ronnie Hazel. He was my first boss. He and Renee, they just had the twins, and that was my first camp. I handed over most of that sort of thing to Ronnie. I didn't do a great deal. I didn't know what to do. I just went to sleep in my tent that night, usually with a couple of beers. I had no idea. There can't be many different environments from living in England to coming into a farm in Rhodesia.
Yeah, absolutely.
I learned a lot very quickly.
But actually, I mean, without wanting to slight De Beers, because they were good partners for us in Botswana, is that they actually do use geologists as cannon fodder. Right. They bring them out on 2-year contracts. Yeah. Soil sample, and never ever saw a result. So things they lived well for 2 years. They got a good sort of tax-free subsidy, and they left. Yep. Now, very few of them carried on, to be honest. It's not anything to do with the individual, but that was the style of it back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Yeah. The geologist was employed to do the job and don't ask about the results. Mm. And it's only when you really got to work with the results, whether it was geochemical results from the soil sampling program and being able to draw it up by hand as you did in those days, that you really appreciated what you were doing.
Yeah. We just sent the soil samples into head office, and that was it. Yeah. We had to concentrate them, so every Saturday he was working a little concentrator. Yeah. Same thing. Yeah. And the only reason we knew if there was any progress was we'd gone from river sampling. No, then we were told to go and soil sample that area, and once or twice. No, we've just taken out a lateral, whatever it was called. We had that area, and we could then go and drill. That only happened twice in 3 years. But you learnt a lot.
I think some of the technology that one experiences over the years. I mean, it's like the first diamond drill I ever supervised. I mean, I didn't know what a diamond drill looked like when I started coming up. Didn't even know. John Blaine told me how you set it up and aim it in the right spot. I thought I was really clear. I mapped this through. I could see the lineations. I knew the mineralization should plunge along a clay in that direction. I had my sections drawn up. And I drilled the hole, and of course I didn't hit anything. Well, mine booked everything, all sorts of rip. We said, rule number 1, you drill right under the best outcrop. Anyway, I left shortly after that, and I don't think the project went anywhere. But it's I spent you cover different types of technology. We started in Botswana with jumper drilling, our first direct jumper drilling, which was the way all holes were drilled in Botswana. Yep. If nobody knows what jumper drilling is, well, that's a problem.
I think you're going to have to tell us.
Well, I mean, it's basically...
you don't end up with a core.
Basically, a cable pulls this heavy tool up and down, breaks the breaks whatever's underneath. Then you drop down I pull a diamond sampling, you drop down this bucket with a butterfly valve at the bottom, so it goes down through the water column. You jug it up and down at the bottom, and then you pull it up and you have a sample. You drop that into a screen or whatever. And from that, Falconbridge was the first company in Southern Africa to bring in reverse circulation into Southern Africa. We had so many targets to cover in Botswana. Like we identified 70 or 80 aeromagnetic targets, and we were never going to cover that in a month of Sundays with a jumper draw. So they, with our connection with Superior Oil, who were major shareholders, they got a hold of an oil drilling rig out of Calgary, and they shipped it over. And like goodness, the localization, of course, was 1 million pula. We thought, these guys came out. There were 3 guys, or no, 4 guys, or 3 guys and a lady, 2 drillers, 1 manager, and a cook. And they came out. They had the most magnificent accommodation.
Should we inquire whether the lady was the cook or not?
Well, she was double duty. And these 2 drillers taught the local Botswana how to work. I mean, these guys could lift a 44-gallon drum of fuel in the back of the rig. And that reverse circulation equipment, when he was adapted, the company was bought out by Bort, and eventually became part of a major wide diameter reverse circulation system that the vet drilling developed in Botswana. They were closely associated on the jumper drilling side, and then they took that on. That's become the jumbo drill ring, which is like the gold standard for initial sampling of diamond deposits in Africa.
I didn't realize that. We used them much later. Reverse circulation. A tremendous way of working.
Because, I mean, traditionally it was just a hammer drill. Take a guess at what sort of sample you're getting. We used to try and test a recovery, or whether it's a jumper drill or or just a hammer drill. Chris Jennings, who devised this thing, he got a whole bunch of cut diamonds. He radiated it. I think his friend Jacques Selshop used to give him irradiated. They were lovely and green, but they were cut. Put them in a cement bomb, put them down the hole, and then drill them out and recover it.
See what happens.
It's a recovery technique. But I don't know, when I left Botswana, I ended up with a little packet of big green diamonds. I don't know what happened.
Did you work on any drill machines, Mike?
Yeah, I did quite a few drift drilling in mines and what have you, and looking at what the results were and how to lattice certain sections. Geologists would then point out, okay, so we need to remove this section of the stope or whatever the case was. And we had to have a look at the type of percussion, how hard of the depth that we wanted to go to, and those sort of technical things. I was just thinking about this question that Noleen posed, and that was, what are the skill sets that are now required in amongst the geology field, and for that matter, any other professional field that works in the field. And I'm sort of thinking to myself, these days, the hard skills, the things like analysis and tools that they have to do that sort of thing with are getting better the whole time, and they continually being improved. But I wonder if one of the skill sets that we still require in the field is networking. The guys are still working in silos, and very much.
In fact, what Dave was saying, you'd left out there for a couple of years, and I think on your boss coming to visit every 6 weeks or 2 months.
That's it. Yeah,
that's all you see.
My point goes back to the fact that we're getting this huge amount of information that's coming in through the system, and it's very, very good quality research and very, very good quality analysis of where and what you're doing. But the networking, not necessarily within that company, but within the whole field of endeavor, is still not there as far as I can hear amongst people that are not retired. Because amongst people that are retired, they know each other. They know each other from the field. There's no more challenge and no more problem with them speaking to each other. But I don't see that happening in the field now, where they should be collaborating.
Yeah, because companies want to retain their own information. You're not allowed to spread it around.
But within companies, I mean, and Falconbridge was a large part of my life, they were extremely good at interaction, but only by the point in the late 70s, late 80s, when Mike Nucky took over. Many people wouldn't know him. In Falconbridge as the vice president, and he just believed in people talking to each other. And he started me off on an amazing route of traveling around Canada, traveling to the United States, looking at mineral deposits, and seeing as much as you could. I mean, you may not understand, Paul, but you saw a huge amount of stuff. So, everything from, of course, Falconbridge nickel mines and Kidd Creek and the Rwanda VMS deposits to Elliott Lake, from then out to British Columbia and sort of various, and into the United States, various porphyry deposits and gold deposits. It was unbelievable. And they just sort of, we must go and do this because you need to see things. And that, I think, is a big thing which maybe many young geologists don't see, that because they don't work for large companies that can send them on so-called junkets.
Yeah.
And it might be a bit of a junket, but boy, it just clues you into so many things.
Yeah, I agree. I went through, when I was at head office, which I didn't enjoy most of it, but I got out to Ghana, to Australia, to Chile, to Venezuela, etc., doing exactly what you're saying. Finding out what the people are doing.
Yeah.
I actually had to come and do spreadsheets on the actual formation of how they were declaring ore reserve, how they got to the ore reserve. And it's so different here to there to there. It was all gold mines, but boy, they were very, very different. And they enjoyed that.
You're in Canada, part of an exchange. With Mike Nucky, he took a manager from the office in Toronto and he stuck him in my house in Gabbro, and he sent me there and he said, this is a strange time, admin manager geology, but basically it was just managing paper.
Yeah.
But he actually said to me, I want you to go to every exploration office in Canada, and I want you to set up a strategic program as to how these guys operate and what are the similarities, what are the differences, what can we do better. And that was an unbelievable.
Yeah, similar to what I do.
From Greenland to British Columbia to the northern Quebec.
Bit different from Botswana.
Yeah.
The climate for a start.
Well, the guy who went to live in a house in Botswana, he had a ball. He had a servant and a copper 4x4 and stuff that he just coasted along. But
to get away from the idea of industrial espionage, which happens now anyway, because of the amount of technology out there.
I mean, I talk to the guys that come out from Denver Energy in the USA on these trips that they do out to the turbidites in Taiwan. And I speak to them, and those guys have all worked for several different companies within that oil gas fields that they have out there. And they all share technology with each other. And I find that extremely powerful because they were describing to me, in actual fact, how they've now gone from vertical to horizontal drilling with one drill string. And they are around a 90-degree bend.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't have been possible without the networking amongst themselves, intercompany. The competition is no longer that strict and that preservative of the IP that they don't mind sharing. And I think that is coming back to the original point that I was trying to make, is that we should be networking and sharing better at this stage.
Yeah, but couldn't agree with
organizations, professional organizations, it's very difficult, to make it affordable for as many people as possible to attend these sort of meetings, conferences, so on. Affordability is huge. I mean, for a retired person, to go to geocongresses, it's not expensive, not travel mostly. So it's a privilege when they come down to your part of the world, and you're able to do that. And it's nice to see.
Communications is basically what we're talking about. Communications on different levels. It's communications me to some new student. It's communications you to somebody else at the same level. We don't now have to go up the pyramid and let them talk. And then it comes down. We must do it at our levels.
And the media that we have for communication these days is just amazing.
Ridiculous.
This sort of technology these days as to what it was. It's totally in support of talking to each other about anything.
But there are also, I think the one thing that geologists do experience is an amazing places.
Very much so, yeah.
If you're living in a little town like Okahanya or Atabi or
Arkanay
up in Pretoria or Port Rust in a caravan or Uppington, they're all experiences. And I think a geologist who wants to really understand his career needs to just put up with it. Just put up with it,
Yeah.
This too will pass.
I actually made my friend John when I was doing it, because you had to put up with these places that you were sent all over the world.
Exactly.
And actually, to make it your friend, it then becomes, it works with you.
Yeah.
You start to enjoy the place that you're in.
Yeah,
I found some amazing places in the world that I've been to in my particular discipline. At Banana Base on the Congo mouth was one of my favorite places, because I could go and study crabs. Those are the funny fiddler crabs, all right, the one with the big claw. I used to jump on a grader and go and grade their roads for them quickly because they couldn't do it. It was a gift from a Gulf Oil that I was working for. They gave it to the local municipality. I don't know what you called it in those days, Banana Base, but it was standing there in the rain and rotting away, and I used it to grade their roads. Or otherwise, I'd go down to the mangrove swamps and just sit there for 3 or 4 hours, get bitten by all sorts of things, and not only mosquitoes, but study the environment.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And, you'd walk out of there 100 meters into an equatorial forest, literally.
Beautiful.
That was one of the most amazing places I've ever been. And I've been in sub-frontier ones, up in Chobe and up into Zambia.
I've always been attracted by deserts, and living in Southwest Africa, where I did my master's as well, is also fabulous. It's just that dry environment, and particularly Namibia is just the most beautiful place for geology.
Yeah.
It's just in your face. It's there. And that was probably the best living, working experience was living in Namibia.
Yeah, mine would be Arkanay Black Mountain, no question.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had 9 years I was there.
Yeah.
And just what you've been saying, the environment itself is one thing, the community and being able to bring my kids up, walking out into the bush, walking up into the mountains, walking along the Orange River there, camping there, the whole thing, the whole environment, apart from the fact that geology was fascinating there. Yeah. And being able to go to the Richtersveld or that kind of thing. But that's my definite highlight, no question whatsoever. Yeah. No.
Well, we're living in Botswana, in Gaborone. My kids were growing up and were going to primary school in Gaborone. And we had the camp up in Kalahari, and we just, like Easter weekend, get in and go to the camp, stop over, then just drive.
Yep.
Drive for half a day, stop, spend the whole weekend there, camp out. I mean, nowadays there's lions and things out there, isn't it? So it was kind of like, that's just amazing, and it's been amazing for them.
I must admit, when I talk to my kids, they're in their 40s now, but they remember that time themselves as well. And both of them are very, very much involved with the environment and that kind of thing because of those 9-10 years. Yeah.
Doesn't it actually bring back to you favorable memories of being able to mentor to you?
Clap on the back. We did it right.
As that old person did for you, you did for your children there those 9 years, and that's extremely valuable. I took my kids down to the Orange River when I was living in Springbok, and they found a Bedford bonnet. Right. They turned it upside down and they went paddling down it. It was just their canoe. I mean, there's just amazing things that you remember about where you've been. Walking with the elephants up in the Luangwa Valley, or in the Psuwa Pan in Botswana when we were extracting potash and what have you. And just the fact that you will drive to King's Island and stop there, and then at 3 o'clock the next morning you'd wake up and I dig Chris Bourneman in the ribs, and I said to him, Chris, can you hear something very strange? And we buzz out of the tent and we're looking for lions and hyenas and all sorts of wonderful things that might be there. And we came to the realization that the noise we were hearing was actually the wind coming towards us. Yeah. The wind hit us 50 minutes later. And we could actually hear that noise. But these are the unusual things that we've been privileged to be able to, in our lines of career, to be able to experience.
That's a very good way of putting it. Privilege to be able to hear it.
Absolutely, it is a privilege.
Yeah.
And I think we were brought up in a very privileged in
I know we were. I think maybe the sad thing about the current geological profession is there's so much involved with technology. I think at one stage in my career, I regretted not learning NAP info. I mean, gee, that's like a Andax now. And, but I did regret that. But now I've learned other things, like how to use Google Earth and actually map on Google Earth. I mean, why do you need anything else? And that's just we find down here. And sadly, I think, and I did see that with some of the youngsters we worked with Impact in Botswana, is they hadn't had enough rock contact. They didn't have enough rock contact. They had the technology, but they didn't have rock contact. They hadn't seen enough rocks. They hadn't.
You guys will know, your experience will tell you about some of these geologists you get from places like Ghana who have qualified in a university. They've never been on a field trip. And they come down here and they the local geologists look at them and say, but what did you actually learn about while you were studying? They're very, very good technically. It's the same as in my field. The guy will come out and knows how to put two bolts together, but he's got no clue as to where the bolts came from, how they started, where, and the deeper knowledge that goes with it. They've qualified, true, but it's a paper qualification. And that is sometimes a problem.
Yes, for sure.
Okay, so we've been talking about future generations. How would you like to see future generations build on our work and take our legacy forward?
I think that very much involves what Mike has just been saying. They've got to be out in the field. They've got to have tripped over the rock.
Rub your hand on it.
Yeah.
You do. I know it's a challenge for universities, the cost of getting a year out in the field for a week or something. That costs.
It's a multi-pronged problem in that our education system is failing us in terms of putting out the right people, the right type of qualification that we get. We don't want people with 30% pass rates to attempt geology. And that's unfortunate. I understand the political pressure, and I understand that we need to get numbers clean. That I'm 100% with it. But on the other hand, we also need to look at and the point was, what do we want to see happen? And we need to get more youngsters interested, because there is so much out there at the moment to attract their attention when they get out of school. How do you make geology interesting to them? My thought is then we need more geologists. So how do you do it? You go into school when they're a bit younger and start giving them the zhuzh, the fabulous moments, and exposing them to what can be achieved, what they can do with their own lives before you actually get the geology, and then say, geology is the way to get there, where you play.
But many of them, particularly coming from the more disadvantaged communities, and we've had this experience at Howell Quarter where they've had those careers, science careers, and it has those swarms of grade 8 and grade 9 students through there, and we've had little stand with new geological stuff. And if it's not tactile, like polished stones, it's like a blank. I started off on a good foot the first time, and I said, who knows what's a billion? How many zeros in a billion? No, I didn't follow that on very far, because you realize that these are the top learners in the science field, and they don't know basic numbers.
Well, I have exactly that experience in taking students around the Earth Age display.
Yeah.
And, there's lots of wide-eyed things that they say, but just to get them to realize that scale is incredible. That when you come up to 540 at the base of the Cambrian, Eddy Curran, that everything prior to that, all 40 meters, was only bacteria. That kind of thing.
I've done the same thing at Gansbaai with that birthday display, and they lose interest within those first 4 or 5 minutes.
You've really got to get them
to focus on the 1 or 2 that are still with you and bring them into the fold. But once again, it's making it interesting, because they tactile. They look at pictures. They're not particularly interested at that stage at looking at the numbers and the what have yous. So you need to draw them in, and I think we need to make it attractive to get into geology. One way or another.
In my first interaction out there, apart from dumbfounding with a billion, I had various bits of field equipment, even to a GPS and so on there, and a hammer and lens more as to, and it was the GPS. It was like, it always looks like a cell phone. What happened? I thought, oh dear.
My hand lens disappeared with these
maps and things. I think working with maps is the most fascinating thing. I mean, that's my life. I see just a topographic map here. That to me is the most fascinating piece of architecture I've ever seen. It's a history on a page. And drawing a map yourself. I mean, the satisfaction you get from connecting all the dots, making interpretation and stuff like that. It's great.
Yeah.
When I worked for West Rand Cons on Friday afternoons, it was colouring afternoon.
Right.
So that's when we're colouring our maps in our section.
Yeah.
But you're talking about colouring maps now, and look at the way technology has changed. They do exactly the same. They just do it on Google.
Yeah, I think the colour in maps these days is atrocious. There's no simple colours.
Well, I don't know about, when I was looking at our exploration base camp, we were using ArcGIS. It had only just started, and I pushed it. But you didn't have scanning of maps. We had 3 ladies digitizing every single thing on the map. Yeah. And entering it in, and I would have to check it.
Yeah.
Programming in MS-DOS.
Yep, did that too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's classic.
I mean, nowadays you can put something together, not the drop of a hat. I mean, that little poster behind me on rocks and soils of the Overberg, but the ladies at the Botanical Society, I thought these people need to know something about what the Feinwalst grows in. And boy, did they take it on board. And physical display the one year turned into a poster.
Yeah, the one you gave to me, we've got in the education side at HBG. Yeah.
You want some rocks?
Yes. Mike brought through a beautiful pseudotacholite. Yeah, it was fantastic. And I asked the students we had yesterday around there, what was that? They didn't get it, even though it was parked right underneath the Freda Fort. Yeah. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah. I was grumpy with Mike when he bought that because he'd given it all away, and I've been expressively asking for a piece because it's one thing that I've never done. I've never been able to get into that quarry. Yeah, nick a piece of pseudotacholite. He bought me some beautiful gimbalite from Tutelspan, which was this big. Yeah, and I said I don't want it. I want a piece of pseudotacholite. Yeah.
Okay, so I think to wrap up, could you give me your career in 3 words?
Learn about rocks.
It was the best.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I would not swap it.
I mean,
that's 4.
I think we need to work on your map. But we'll take it.
No, I would not have changed it for anything. Yeah.
Certainly. Absolutely true. No ways where I've looked for a different career.
Well, I think the one, just to add, I mean, one of the really great things that has come out of recent interactions here was this box of rocks. And that's got to be somehow, we talked a lot about producing one strictly for the open
around here,
variety. But really, that is, and it's the booklet that goes with it, which is such a good basic geological technique. My granddaughter loves it.
My grandchildren's school have got one. Yeah, I gave the box and the thing to my grandchildren's school, and they asked me then to give them a talk on it. So I had to give a Zoom talk and pick up the piece of rock and tell them about it. They think it is fantastic. Yeah.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Fossils by Firelight. A huge thank you for David, Mark, and John for sharing your stories, from childhood curiosities to Google search confusions, to those unforgettable first days in the field. It's always a reminder that geology might start with rocks, but it's really about the people that keep chasing them, often literally. Thanks for listening, stay curious, and may your next field sample actually be the one you were looking for.
You've been listening to another production from Solid Gold Podcasts.